Good morning, welcome. You're with NewstalkZB. I'm Fransesca with you until midday today. And relationship expert Stephen Dromgool has joined me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I believe that I inspired this morning's theme.
It was all about you.
Not that I'm single.
Yes, well,
but
we were talking about Valentine's last time, and then you threw a curveball question at the end, but what about the singles? And I thought, well, actually, we've got the preparation set in place for the couples. Let's talk about, with Valentine's coming up, people may be sort of sitting there thinking, oh God, do I really, am I ready for this? Do I want to get back into, into this process again? And often the question people ask is, how do I know when I'm ready?
So when are we not ready? Should we start there?
That is a really good question. So one of the things that I think is a really useful rule of thumb is that if it's less than 6 months after a serious relationship has ended, you're not ready.
And how did you come to that time frame?
Ideally, I actually would have said a year, but no one complies with that one. But within 6 months, it's just, the odds of it working, they're really low. I mean, there are some exceptions, but this is particularly an issue for men in general. Have a very high incidence of moving out of one relationship and then running straight into another relationship. And the tendency is that it will become a rebound relationship. And so my pro tip for women is, if you're on a dating site, you're talking with someone and it's less than 6 months, don't walk away, run. Before you get hooked, before you, sort of I'm sure you're a really nice person, if you're still interested, come back and, 6 months kind of thing. And don't keep messaging or whatever, because that's part of the process of starting the relationship.
Okay, so we've got a time frame. So how do we know if we hit the 6 month mark that we are ready to get dating again?
Yeah. So I might just talk about one thing. So there's a little exception if it's a short relationship. So honeymoon, you meet someone, there's massive chemistry, everything's going wrong, going great, and then suddenly something goes wrong and you break up. And those can be quite tricky because you've got all of the honeymoon drugs. So you've got the phenylethylamine, and phenylethylamine is what your body produces when you smoke crack. It basically helps us bond to our partner, and it's what makes the honeymoon so exciting, but it literally alters our brain. And so what happens is, if a breakup occurs in that stage, it can be really painful. Now, the physiological process, the impact on your body will only last for about 6 weeks. But the problem is the psychological thing. So there can be that sense of oh my God, I've never felt like, this with anyone before, you're the one, you're my soulmate. And so the psychological hooks that people can create for themselves can last for years, and school heart, sweethearts.
Oh, so you can get hung up on that short-term relationship, possibly even more than a long-term relationship that's run its course and you're both happy to move on.
Yeah, because you're totally
I'm with you now.
Person.
Right.
And so, you have the high school sweethearts, they get together and, you separate, and it was, they were the one. If only, I'd been with that person. And it can really ruin lots of other relationships. And so that's one of the ones that, if you get hooked in that way, my recommendation would be to come and see a counsellor around that one, because it can really help you let go of some of those processes.
But also, they want to be giving themselves maybe 6 months as well.
No.
Not necessarily?
So if you can get through the 6 weeks, you can do the body unhook.
Right. Yep. Gotcha.
And you can do the psychological unhook. Then again, that's a little bit more variable, but it doesn't normally need to be anywhere near as
the rose-tinted glasses have come off, and you actually said,
they're a normal person.
And
they actually weren't the one.
Yeah.
I can still meet someone else. All of that kind of stuff. That's something just about that. Because obviously, if we go on a date and we meet someone and we make a connection, I'm like, oh crap, it's going to be 6 months. That's going to be pretty hard. So basically, in terms of what you're looking at, the first test is what we want to let go of bitterness, and this is because the young part of our brain that helps us bond doesn't differentiate a lot between partners. And so what happens is, once we get bonded, we'll go through that process where we think this person's amazing, they're completely different from our ex, all of that stuff is going on. But emotionally, once we actually get into the relationship and the honeymoon drugs wear off, we tend to fuse those things together. And so if we're carrying bitterness towards our ex, we're going to start dumping that stuff onto our new partner.
Do you think people are honest with themselves about when that bitterness has gone or not? Whether it's gone or not?
Yeah, it's certainly not a problem that most people are struggling with, about being too honest with themselves. But actually, there's a fairly easy way to check it. You can get a friend to ask you about your ex. So they can just say, hey, tell me about your ex. And if you're someone who's into technology, get a heart rate monitor. If you're really into technology, get a heart rate variability monitor. But basically monitor your heart rate while you're talking about them. And what we're looking for is that you can talk about the good and you can talk about the bad. And that you're not looking at your heart rate massively kind of accelerating, with either of those. And if you want to prepare yourself for that, there's a process called the goodbye dialogue. And you can do it as a written exercise, and then you can practice it as a talking exercise, which is you look at, what did I like about this relationship? What was kind of crappy about this relationship? What do I want to let go of? And also, what do I want to hold on to? What did I learn in this relationship? Because I think, one of the biggest tragedies is you go into a relationship, you have all of these experiences with someone, and you don't learn anything from it. So my theory is, if you're going to go into a relationship and relationship at the end, I at least want to learn something from it.
So if the heart rate increases,
then that's generally a sign that you're not ready for that. Because if you're dating someone and on the first date they spend the entire day talking about their terrible ex, again,
I was going to ask you.
Run, don't walk.
I was going to ask you about that. How do you talk about your relationship history with somebody if you've just met them?
Yeah.
And you don't bring it up, do you?
Well, actually, I think it probably not on the first date, but certainly I think it's something that you do want to know about, reasonably quickly, because you want to know most of the issues we have in relationships are relatively predictable, and so getting a sense of, what happened in the relationship, what did you learn from this relationship, what have you changed in order that would make our relationship better. I think those are really good screening questions that should be happening in my world before you're sleeping with someone.
You'd quite like, sorry, curveball, you probably quite like The Bachelorette, because of course these people are meeting and having these speed dates, and it's a quick, have you been in a relationship, have you been in one long, and you're having to reveal all this information probably a little earlier than most of us would feel comfortable if we're getting to know somebody, I would say.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge nowadays, because in that, it's normal in most cultures 30, 40 years ago that there would be a courting process before you were sleeping together, because once you start sleeping together, you're pretty much immediately going to start triggering PEA. And so the challenge we have is actually we have quite a high need to get quite a lot of information fairly quickly. So that would be something.
So we've got to make sure we've got no bitterness.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And the second thing is basically that you have a life worth living. So if your life as an individual is not something that is worth, meaningful, significant, and worth living, you're essentially coming into the dating game from a position of kind of being impoverished. You're a little bit desperate.
So you've got to be happy with yourself.
Basically, yeah.
Happy with life.
Yeah.
Content being single.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so at that point in time, it's basically, you know what you want. And again, there's an exercise you can do with this, which is basically, so this is something I learned from my lover, which is basically pick the 50 things that are most important to you in a future mate. Write them down. It actually wants
50.
Yeah. And so,
she's demanding.
What do you want it to look like? What emotional qualities? Do you want them to be wealthy? What is it that you need? And
I think I'd struggle to get to 10.
You'll be surprised actually how quickly we can add it up.
Right, okay, sorry.
Pick your top 5.
Mm.
So out of the 50, pick the 5 things that are most important for you, and then go and do it yourself. So if you want to be with someone who's financially successful, and you're not doing anything to work on your own financial success, you're probably never going to meet people who are financially successful. I feel like if you're doing that stuff, you're much more likely to do that. If physical health is important to you, what are you doing to work on your own physical health? Because that, at a very practical level, is going to put you into
an environment where you can potentially meet. Oh, I like this.
Yeah. And if you're really into food,
she's clever.
Put it into practice.
Yeah, I like it. Stephen, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah.
When's Valentine's Day next week?
Yes, on Friday.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
It is